Good morning, Bravita. A hearty welcome on a beautiful sunny day. It's very good to see some old friends, Sharon and Dee, who just did a wonderful live performance thing. With Sharon was a star, and they haven't been here because of COVID, so it's good to see them back. But anyway, thank you all for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica in beautiful Costa Rica. Jeff is giving a talk this morning, and Pam is going to start us off with some body meditation.
Yes. So good morning. And as always, I like to get into a seated position, eyes open or eyes closed, however you're comfortable. If your eyes are open, just kind of soften your focus so that you're not really looking at any one thing. Settle the shoulders down away from the ears and sigh into your seat. Sigh into the ground, the earth, let the earth support you. Let the floor come up to meet you and you come down to meet the floor. Feel gravity in your body. And start to notice the parts of the body that are touching the ground. Whatever parts those are. Doesn't matter how you're sitting. And from that grounded position, bring some awareness to the belly and the spine so that you can grow up from the earth like a flower.
Welcome to Costa Rican politics.
And keep your attention on your breath and your body.
Yeah.
And any disruption, sound, smell, anything that comes into your awareness, let it pass like a cloud in a blue sky.
Right.
Come back to your blue sky. And open the eyes, take a big breath in. Think about the crown of the head up and over and bring your chin to your chest. Pause. And then inhale through center. Pause back so that the face comes up to the sky and exhale. And open the mouth and inhale back through center. And up and over, chin to the chest. Feel the length all the way from your seat up the back of the neck, side out. Inhale through center. And face again up towards the sky, or think about the crown of the head reaching up and over again, back behind you. Come back to center. This time, take your left hand down to the floor, turn the head right. So inhale. Exhale to look over your right, and we'll pause here for 2 breaths. And just feel length all the way up the arm, through the side of the neck, behind the ear, and then inhale through center. Take your right hand off the side, reach, and then side space. Up through the back of the ear, down the neck. And come back to center. This time, drop that left hand and the right ear goes to the right shoulder. Oh my. Big breath. And if it's a challenge, oh my goodness, what are you holding? 1 more breath. Really take your time. Soften. Think softening into the spot. So inhale through center. Right arm reaches out to the floor. And left ear drops to the left elbow. And it's not so much a stretch. It's a giving into. Give into the breath. Sigh into the breath. sigh into the side of the neck or the shoulder or wherever you feel it. The face, you're noticing tension. One more breath. And come back to center. Take some shoulder rolls. A few times back. Ooh. Lift the shoulder blade up off the back of the body like your angel wing. Flare out your angel wing. And reach the hands out nice and long. Grab. Make fists. Spread the fingers. Pull on a rope. Wherever you need. And then last thing, we'll take a twist. Reach for that opposite knee, yes. Just rest that arm back behind you so you're not having to worry about holding it. Pull yourself around. Inhale through center. Exhale. Twist to the other direction. Work your gaze back over that shoulder if you're able. Just think about it, even if it's just in your imagination. Good. And back to center. Reach high, reach high. Hands down to your heart. Here we are.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Everybody got all the kinks out now. Oh, that's invigorating. And thank goodness our political
Oh, my God.
announcer took off for some other direction. Okay. Greetings.
Greetings. I think that it's always perfect when the topic is hindrances that we have some the morning we come. I had like 10 this morning where I'm like, well, that certainly fits with the practice of my talk today. So last week, Ruthie did a presentation on, she might not have had this title, but the title that I gave it was The Road of Happiness. Not the destination of happiness, because the road that leads to some destination is the road of happiness, according to Buddhist thinking. It's central and core to the thought. And so as she was talking about that beautiful idea, I thought many times during her talk about another talk that I had given maybe 2 years ago about the hindrances to the concentration of meditation. And I'd like to apply those same hindrances to the road of happiness. That these are hindrances to the road of happiness. And so I did the talk. So I'm going to start with a story. I was trying to figure out which of the 100 stories that I would have about my life should I share that were about the hindrances to the road of happiness. And I came up with one that I don't think this person will ever be watching our videos. And I'm going to call her P. It is the first letter of her name, but I took a job in the roughest counseling center in Minnesota, downtown Minneapolis, with a lot of prisoners and crack addicts. Mostly not my same race. And I had so much to learn. But I took the job and I loved it. I was excited. I was new in my field. And had done a couple of years of trying to convince 15-year-olds not to smoke marijuana and be thrown from school.
Yeah.
It was a long 2 years. It was a long 2 years, and then this treatment opportunity came, and I had done my internship there, so I took it. And a former family counselor that I worked with in my internship was now the director of the men's treatment program, 40 to 50 pretty rough men. And a 3-4 month program, a pretty rough program. The least funded in the state of Minnesota of which it's not only the land of 10,000 lakes, it's the land of 10,000 treatment centers.
Mhm.
And so I took the job, and right away I was challenged in my thinking. I have many of those stories I could tell, but P was my boss. And she was excited to have me there, and there were 3 other family counselors, and right away she elevated me to lead counselor. I had more education but less experience than the other counselors. The other counselors didn't especially appreciate this. And it went interestingly for 1 year. The program was rough, the clients were rough, the staff was rough. I was soft and inexperienced. And so regularly when we had our staff meetings, the 3 family counselors and the supervisor P, she would try to instruct us on how to be tough counselors, how to practice tough love, how to not give in to the manipulation of street people. And I resisted for about a year. Every staff meeting ended up being some kind of argument between her and I in front of the other people. Surprisingly, P did not have a lot of tolerance, but she lasted a year before she confronted me on it.
Mm.
And so a year in the middle of the meeting, she said, when I had objected or offered an alternative to the way that she was having us move, she said to me, "I'm going to dismiss the rest of the staff. Jeff, you can stay here." I know it was trouble. And so they left. They were like, "Well, good luck to you." and P said to me, "I'm going to give you a weekend to decide whether you want this job." The staff meetings were on Fridays, and she goes, "I'm going to dismiss you from your responsibilities today. I'll pay you for today. I'd like you to go home, and I'd like you to think how much you'd like to keep this job, and here's what it will take to keep the job. I will only need to hear 2 words from you as long as you work here. Yes, ma'am."
I knew that was coming.
This was, if this was my story often with my mother growing up. So this was just a second enactment of the same story for me. And so I went home feeling fairly resistant and thinking that I probably better change jobs. I waited out over the weekend and loved what I was learning, loved what I was contributing at this place. And so I came back in to the tree. I came at 8 a.m. to her office on Monday morning, and I said, "Yes, ma'am." 5 years, I said, "Yes, ma'am." So I stayed there 6 years, learned, I think, all that I had to learn and give all that I had to give, and then I moved on to another job. P was a hindrance to my road of happiness. That I determined what the road looked like. And when I left, she even got the last dig in when everybody was thanking me for all the work that I had done and the people that supposedly I had helped. Then she said to me, "Well, you learned a lot here." That was it. That's all she said. And I'm like, "I did. Thank you." And I learned that idea that this was the rules by which I would keep the job. There's so much that it was not a clear bowl of water about that experience, which is one of the things that the Buddha talked about, hindrances. And yet, when I reflect on having done that job, it is indeed a bowl of clear water for me. Because I figured out how to work with and around and through the hindrance. That was not only her, she was the ultimate hindrance, but there were many others along the way that were hindrances, including being a white suburban boy. And yet, through those hindrances came something absolutely beautiful and really the best job I ever had. So, the Buddha was super interested in that idea that there is a road of happiness available to us. And also, realistically, that there are hindrances, impediments, detours, obstacles along the way. One of the things I love about Buddhism is it's so realistic. It takes life as it is and talks about it. Not pie in the sky, not depressive material, but realistic material about how we deal with this. So I'm hoping that what you get out of this is that when these impediments, when these roadblocks, when these detours come your way, that there is a way through them. And there is even a atmosphere of happiness in the middle of them available, and it is through the transformation of your mind. That's the key way to stay on the road despite the impediments, is to change your mind. We talked about that a lot. And the Buddha was very interested that from the mind comes a different place, beyond the circumstances, beyond the inputs. And that it's both internal and external work. So I want to teach you. I want to teach you these. There are 5 hindrances, mind obstructions on the road to happiness. As you're on the road to happiness, but there are actually 6, because the first one is the ultimate bowl. Happiness is a bowl filled with clear water that reflects one's own image, the true nature of a person's mind. That is happiness in a picture.
Say that again?
Yeah.
A bowl filled with clear water to reflect one's true nature.
Your light.
Your light, the light that you are. A goal to get to. A happiness as you get there. Clarity, purity, a way around and out of the things that hinder that. The Buddha also used metal as an illustration for these 5 bowls of hindrance, defilements. It was, I think, a product that was used in the common day, and so he used something from his day to try to describe this to people. And he says that there are 5 debasements of gold, which is like the bowl of pure water. And that when these substances, iron, copper, tin, lead, silver, when they are mixed with gold, they contaminate it. And it becomes less pliable, less workable, less bright, more brittle, and of no use for the best work.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I've never heard that one.
It's really cool.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
The
It's
5
so easy to see it.
the 5 contaminants of gold, which makes them not pliable or workable or bright, but brittle and of no use for the best work. Iron, copper, tin, lead, silver. So let's go through these 5 so that you see them, and then I have a couple ideas here about how to abandon these hindrances that are on the road to happiness. First one that the Buddha talked about are sense desires. This is a hindrance. This is an obstacle. This is a contaminant.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. So compulsive preoccupation with sensual pleasure and comfort seem to summarize it for me. A compulsive preoccupation with sensual pleasures and comfort is an impediment, a contaminant to the transformation of your mind, which leads to living the road of happiness.
Well, that could be overeating, over drinking, over sex, or, any any of the sensory that is inappropriate. Now,
absolutely. I wrote down some healthy sense desires, wishes, motivations, aspirations, real needs,
affirmations.
All of those are healthy sensual desires played in a moderate, equanimous way. Nothing wrong with sensual desires. It's the extremities that are the problem, as always. Unhealthy desires are things like wants, compulsions, addictions, thirsts, clinging, grasping, craving, so says the second noble truth. So, as in a lot of these 5, as in probably each one of them, but I'm going to highlight a couple, there's a positive and there's a negative side to this obstacle, to this impediment. And there's a moderate way, which is completely acceptable. I don't think Buddhists were against sexual activity.
Oh, no, they weren't.
We're not against people having a desire for something that is for their good or others' good.
Only if it caused harm to self or others.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where wants, compulsions, addictions lead you to the imbalance of those. A heart possessed and overwhelmed by sense desires is an impediment, is a defilement. And the Buddha gave this bowl. If you think of bowls with water, he described it as pouring a colored dye into the water.
Clear water, your true self.
Your true self, clear bowl of water, and now you pour dye. In their day, he even had a bunch of things that were listed that these are the dyes that will from their day. Most of them we would not even know what they are now. But it discolors the purity of the water to the point where you can't see yourself, you can't see your true nature. It becomes an impediment to you being the full, beautiful, honorable person that you were originally. And so that discoloration and cloudy water, when you look in it, you can't see that anymore. You can't see the source of the problem. You can't observe the problem. You become the problem. You become the impediment. You can't see a choice. You can't see actions. This is all the cloudiness of what sense desires do. You're out of you're out of that balanced spot, and this is the first one. And impulses, and then the super interesting one. A lot of the literature talked about the intense desire for comfort at all times. Having been an American for most of my life, I get this one.
That's sort of the basis of a material society.
It is.
Of materialism.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That a sensory desire promises, but cannot fully deliver. Temporarily, when you even think about sexual involvement, it promises, it delivers for a moment, and then it's gone.
Mhm.
And so this idea that sense desires get in the way of the full road of happiness, the full reflection of self, of the pure self that you are, is an impediment. Compulsive preoccupation with sensual pleasures and comfort.
Einstein, in that thing I always quote, says that our senses form a kind of prison for us. He uses that in addition.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we get where we crave, we grasp, we cling, we can't get out of our own sensory
Mhm.
pleasures.
Yeah.
Or needs or wants or whatever.
I don't know if
So-
you've ever been in that spot where you can't get your mind off something.
Yeah.
You're stuck.
Mhm.
You can't. There's no transformation available because you're preoccupied. You're addicted to what that is. And when that happens, it's an impediment to the road of happiness. So says the Buddha. Let me go to the second one: anger and aversion. The Buddhists don't have much time for anger. As a matter of fact, most of the literature said there it's not permitted.
Mhm. Right.
Interesting. Because anger can feed in and on itself. It can be like a Minnesota snowball rolling down the hill. And so anger and aversion, the Buddha compared with heated water in that bowl. Mind turbulence, which obscures your clarity and you risk burning yourself.
Boiling water.
Boiling water. Boiling and bubbling over water. And it's in other Buddhist literature, this is one of the three root causes of suffering. Is anger.
It's the snake.
And I would like, as a therapist, to add, why do you say snake?
Because in the hub on the Tonka,
Yeah.
the energy for suffering
Yeah.
are the snake,
Yeah.
the rooster, and the pig. And the number one down at the bottom is the snake, and he represents anger, hatred, violence, etc.
Got it.
And so those are the three negative energies. So this is a
Yeah.
way of looking at those too.
Absolutely. Is heated water by which you cannot see yourself. Anger arises when we are attached to a particular outcome that is not evident in our mind. Anger arises when we are attached to a particular outcome and that we do not see that in our mind. We've talked a lot of times about 3 R's: recognize, release, replace. And we're going to come back to them at the end of this talk, but this certainly fits with anger. Even the psychology field would say we permit anger. Hello.
Hello. Here it comes again.
We permit anger as long as you are working to resolve it. So that would be a little different than the way that the Buddhists talk about it. Not all that different.
Anger leads to violence,
It can,
and Buddhism is nonviolent.
and it can be emotional violence as well as physical
Right.
violence,
Any kind of violence.
and it always leads to self-violence.
Mhm. That's the worst.
Something about our clear water is
kind.
boiling,
Really?
and we are not on the road to happiness. We're on the road to unhappiness instead. One of the antidotes to this one, and I'm going to do it ahead of time, is not viewing things in personal terms, but by the law of cause and effect.
Mhm.
So when something happens and we're angry or we bring it on ourselves through our thoughts, Something has happened to us, and we ruminate about that. We go back to it. We are energized by that negativity somehow. Do you have people in your life that when you think back on them, you don't think pleasant thoughts? I not only have people, but organizations. But you want to know, that's my suffering. That's my self-torture. They probably moved on. They're probably not thinking about me, but I'm thinking about them. I have like 50 examples that I'm not going to share about that when they go, oh that. And so these all lead you into self-torture, into self-violence, into the violence and the bubbling over of that clear water, which of course you can't see yourself in a bubbling in bubbling water either. All you see is the bubbles. That's kind of like anger. You don't see anything but it. It preoccupies you. But I like that idea that you not view things in personal terms, but by the law of cause and effect. I think if people practice this in their home, there'd be no need for family therapy. If indeed people didn't personalize things, that when some things came their way that were negative, they bounced. They bounced. They didn't absorb. You didn't absorb that. You didn't personalize that. This person, think of it as if there's a person and something negative comes at you, if it bounces off, then you've returned it to the sender. They're the person with the problem, not you. Let them have their problem and let them have their rewards and consequences of whatever that is. Practiced in marriage, it's a very interesting thing. Then the conflicts are so much less. Like, why don't you practice in parenting? Your kid says, I think I'll do this, and you don't think it's going to kill them. You're like, why don't you try that, see what happens? Rather than tell them they can't do that, and then, of course, they will do that. So not viewing things personally. Watch it arise, watch it fall, and then choose an act. This means that when anger and aversion appear, you have to let them be, because what will rise will fall. And it's after the falling that you make choices and take actions.
You're the psychologist. The problem is what happens with what we call pushing a button, because you don't pause.
Uh-huh.
Right. So how can you train yourself to not get that moment of reaction where, God, she really pushed my buttons or whatever? Mm-hmm. There has to be somehow, is it just merely practicing being patient in theoretical situations so that when you're faced with the real thing, you can say, just wait.
Don't you think
How do you do that?
Don't you think it's about changing your mind?
The way that you react, you get, where somebody.
So you start to talk yourself.
She made me do it.
Yeah. You talk yourself into the idea that I need time to let this rise and to let this fall. Mm-hmm. That habit is possible, mm-hmm. And that gives you the time. Let's do it as simple. We've used this illustration before. You compose an email of someone that's irritated you. If you're going to be productive about it and you say all kinds of things in that email that feel good, put it in your saved drafts. Read it tomorrow morning and go, a bunch of editing here because it has arisen and now it's fall. And now you know how to be in your right mind about it, not to be as personal about it.
It seems to me in normal life, we need safe words like kangaroo or something just to give yourself that moment.
This is one that people often use.
What is that?
Timeout. After you do a teach.
Okay.
The timeout, when you teach anger management, it's the first step. If someone has had anger management where there are consequences in their life and they have to take an anger management course, this is the first thing. Okay. time out. Now is not the time. You are not prepared. It's rising.
Okay.
Unproductive,
Learn to
but it
follow
is
the rise
rising.
and follow the rise and
Follow the
wait for the
fall.
fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yes, people use all kinds of techniques. Also, I mean, in therapy, often a therapist is used as a person to be accountable to. Yeah, I did that right a couple times, despite the 6 mistakes this week. You're like, okay, let's call that +2.
You can do that with Buddhism too, in your meditation. Gosh,
It can hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Because
Hold yourself
now you
in a safe way. 'Cause
absolutely.
it's not out.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Let's go to the next one, and then we have to smile because we smiled last time about this. The third one is sloth and torpor.
Sloth.
And
Man,
torpor. And when I
torpor.
did this before, people were like, what in the world is that word? I'm just going to say what it's like. A sloth is like a bowl of water with algae.
Just think of a real sloth.
I know.
He's got moss growing on him.
There was an illustration in the literature when I was studying this week that says that you can fire a pistol right by a sloth and they won't move. They won't even flinch. And so this is like, this is kind of living detached.
This is the opposite end of rage and anger.
It is. You go to the exact opposite. Nothing gets to you. No, I'm going to not say what I was going to say next.
No.
The mind is sinking into a state of dullness, sleepiness, heaviness, no clarity, no energy, no light in the mind, murky and confused.
Whew. Yeah.
Makes sense with the stagnant water. I was thinking as this, it's a very disconnected state. It's very disconnected from life. It's the exact opposite of mindfulness.
It's
where you are fully connected in the present moment. This is fully disconnected.
This is the wrong kind of detachment.
It is not detachment at all.
It's not detachment at all, but some people would think it is. But it's
because it's uninvolved. Real detachment is involved. That's the difference between detachment and disconnected.
Big point.
Now, with this, there's a healthy piece of this. There's a head side to the coin of sloth and torpor. Mm-hmm. If it's about resting, about finding tranquility balanced with alertness, then this is a good one. This is not an impediment at all. This is not a hindrance at all. But I was reading that this sloth and torpor can be disguised because of the denial and the withdrawal of things appear like you're letting go of things.
Mm-hmm. I got one of those.
That's the disguise and this is an impediment.
Such a huge point. Yeah.
So an impediment, this sloth and torpor is disguised as something good, appears like it is letting go, but actually it's a denial and a withdrawing. A disconnection.
Yeah, repression.
Yeah, from life.
Oh.
And so in your mind, this is about staying connected. And, and the other thing is people often will do the opposite of this, and it's going to be talked about next. And that is restlessness and worry, the exact opposite of sloth and torpor. Mm-hmm. Restlessness and worry. This is a lot of people I know, including some family members. Constant activity is good. Keep yourself busy and you'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is about being productive and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. This restlessness and worry is like a windswept water, wind sweeping over the bowl of water. The mind is tossed about in the waves or swept by strong winds that sway you forth and back. State of agitation or overexcitement, constant activity, the monkey mind. Do you know what that means? The monkey mind, where the monkey goes from grabbing one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. That is this restless. That is this restless and worrying mind.
Many people are very open about this and say, "I can't meditate. I'm too restless. I can't sit still." You know, they don't realize that's exactly why they should meditate, is to try and overcome that and develop the ability to stay with something.
Yeah. You can understand when the Buddha originally taught this and it was connected with meditation, why this totally makes sense as it was talking specifically about meditation. We're applying it to the road of happiness, but it's
There it is. Calming the mind is.
It is. The source often of this restlessness and worry, besides that it's cultural for some of us, it's familial for some of us, it's touristy for some people. I want to give you an example. We have on our 2 bedrooms that we rent out at our Airbnb the word relajarse in big red letters, relaxation in Spanish. We want to make sure that the Spanish as well as the English people do it. I almost always, when I'm showing people the bedrooms where they're going to stay, stop and say, "Do you know what this word means?" If you come here and you go deep sea fishing, whitewater rafting, zip lining, mangrove tour, Nayaka Falls,
ATV
tortilla flats, ATV rides, you'll have missed Costa Rica. You'll have missed it. You'll have missed the magic of Costa Rica. Those of us that live here, we know what this is because we have to face it every day, positive and negative. And so this is really, it's about the training of restlessness. And sometimes the source of that is unresolved regrets. The source of restlessness and worry are unresolved regrets. How many of you at times wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep? It's often over something has gone wrong in your mind, and there's some unresolvedness about it, and that unresolved regret over what you didn't do in the past, what you should have done in the past, what you did do in the past, or what you'd like to do in the future, what you should do in the future. All of those, not living mindfully in the present moment. That's why in the middle of the night, the best activity is not turning. Who did my sister say? She watched Susie Orman at 3 a.m. She said, "I always learn money management at 3 a.m. when I'm awake."
Oh, no.
And it's like, nice. If you're watching, Julie, you can laugh. I laughed when you said it to me.
Yeah.
And those things, the best activity is to get back to the moment. Mindfully breathing.
Exactly.
Focus. Intention that I want to go back to sleep. Here's the process by which I do that. So to live with those regrets is to live with this restlessness, this worry, the regrets, and to be overexcited, monkey mind, moving from one branch to the next and thinking that will make you happy.
Don't you think that our Western culture almost conditions us to live in that state of mind?
Totally. More is better.
That's right.
More activity, more money, nicer houses, the best car.
Longest list.
Absolutely. So if I have a long list, I have, it's a good day. No, it's a busy day.
There was a point in my life where if I had my list of things to do for the day and something happened and I already did it, I put it on the list so I could cross it off. I said, something's wrong with this.
one of the beauties about living in Costa Rica, those of you who live here, and I think there's most of the people in the room, is you can have a list of 6 things you need to do when you get down the mountain, and you can get like 2 or 3 of them done. Good day.
Make your list of everything you've already done.
That's
And
what
then
I
just
said.
cross them off.
Right, exactly. There's another
I would
activity.
do that.
Absolutely.
And then there's a story in Costa Rica. The woman said, "What do you do in Costa Rica?" And her friend said, "Absolutely nothing, and I'm behind schedule by noon every day." So there you go.
That's cute.
Yeah,
You should be in a comedy act.
together with
All right, the 5th one. Let's go to the 5th one. All right, doubt. And this, I think, is the trickiest of all 5 for me to really grasp onto what it meant.
the Buddha says, "Be skeptical."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2 sides to this coin about doubt. Both talked about in Buddhism, especially the one that's positive. So doubt is like muddy water that obscures your sight and insights.
You get stuck in
Right. That's why I think they use mud,
mud
because you get planted in it.
You get sucked
you
down.
get stuck. And the positive side of doubt is that the Buddha and Buddhists recommend it. Yes. Don't believe. Here's the Buddha talking. Don't believe anything. See for yourself what's true and follow it. And so don't believe anything. Be skeptical about all things.
It's a big talk on
Yeah, I mean, this is like a whole talk that we probably.
he has a whole teaching on that. It was a lecture he gave. Don't believe anything anybody says, including myself. It's only once you have tried it out and experienced it and found it beneficial, then you can accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the downside that I'm going to talk about in a second. Absolutely.
But then the worm that comes in and whatever the mud is.
Yeah.
Second guessing yourself.
Doubt everything. Be your own light.
Mm-hmm.
Weigh the evidence. Sample, which includes not receiving some things if it doesn't seem right to you. Buddhism is non-doctrinal. That's what puts it separate from almost all the other religions. There is no doctrine to follow because skepticism is the word of, is the energy of discovery.
Of God.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So doubt everything.
Okay.
How the downside, why this is put on as a hindrance to the road of happiness. Once you have examined the teachings of Buddhism or anything that you find to be helpful and committed to them, it is distracting to return to a state of indecision about it again. So the doubt is that once you have known what your light is, to then pull back from that light, that doubt is the one that's a hindrance. That was hard for me to come to. I have to tell you, there's probably still some more work I have to do in thinking about this one.
Well,
It's
very
tricky. It's super. This is a super tricky one, and so it seems to me that early on, doubt is good. Later on, when you come to your conclusions, doubt is unproductive. So there's almost like a timeline when it comes to doubt. Doubt it. What we say? Trust. Once, trust in yourself and test it out. Once you've found your answer, your light. First of all, be it. But second of all, don't return to where you were before. That would be the doubt that this hindrance is talking about.
I'm thinking of it like if you really do a good inner investigation to find your real truth, that real light for you, then you probably don't have doubt because you know that it's true for you. But if you haven't actually found that truth for you, that's when there's the doubt because you haven't, or you're not embracing it.
Absolutely. That's nicely put.
What if circumstances change?
And then you examine again, do you not?
have to.
Then you re-examine.
Oh, it's not doubt, it's just re-examine.
Yeah, I think that's the difference.
Okay.
When you doubt the light that you found, I think that light comes forward into your next evolution.
Okay.
It kind of builds, if you do this well, it kind of builds down the road of happiness. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Equanimity.
Go ahead.
No, you.
I'm leaning back. Go ahead.
No, this is what you're saying is when you readjust, you're rebalancing. So this is where the equanimity comes in.
Okay.
I'm gonna have you address that, not me.
I thought you were the one with the idea. It's good.
Doubt is my biggest struggle in life.
Uh-huh.
Because as soon as I think I know something, then I have this, I listen to somebody else's story. It's like, oh, Peter, maybe that wasn't so true. And it's a constant correction course for me. And I'm always careful because I hate the people, this is how it is. Because just when I think this is how it is, it's like, shit, no, it's not. And it's not always a 180-degree turn, but by being so sure, I feel like my world gets smaller. I'm the peacekeeper in the family. I can, that's my role, and that's kind of who my persona is. But it made me always doubt my mothering. And then my kids turned out great. So it's only now, after beating myself up for so long when they were so mischief makers, doubt is so hard to balance.
I think that's why it's nice for you to identify that this is a hindrance for me. I recognize it. This is the first step of working your way through it. Recognize, then you release it, and then you replace it. We come here and replace an awful lot of things that are negative and not working and are distracting by replacing it with compassion and loving kindness. So you've identified. Now you've identified this is, so let me use an illustration. So the challenge I hear is that you need to land your own plane at your own airport.
But I love to travel.
And look
I'm just thinking on
at the unevenness that causes.
Oh, truly.
There's a time to be influenced and there's a time not to be influenced. Depends.
What did you just say?
There's a time to be influenced and there's a time not to be influenced.
There is a time to not be influenced?
Absolutely.
Aren't you going to be hard and cold and old and what would you say?
I'm talking in a balanced way.
Okay.
So anyway, it's good because I think this leads me into how I was going to summarize this section. And that is, I think each of us figure out the biggest impediments here. And I don't know whether you start, how you take on things about changing your mind and changing your road. If it's not a road of happiness, if you take the big things on, take them on. Or if you start with smaller things and say, I want to test out this road. Here's a small one. My small one is anger and aversion. Okay, let me work with when I am angry. But if there's very little there, go to something and try to find the spot that is balanced and is clear, pure water that you are 100% about. It is your gift while you're here. That pure bowl of water is the reason you are here.
Still using the filtration system to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just said she uses the filtration system. I think there's a time for filtering, there's a time for not filtering. There's a time for absorbing influence. There's a time when it hits you and you need to have it bounce off. if someone talks with me about prejudice, I'm not all that interested. Since a kid, that has been a key issue for me. So I could work in the treatment center that I did. I gave up none of it. I don't know. I gave up none of discrimination
Mm.
based on superficial things such as skin color
Mm-hmm.
and those things. And so that is truly pure clear water for me. Through all of my life, I want that one to continue to follow me down the road of happiness. That's one of my gifts, and each of ours are what is our gift? What is our unique gift? You know, most people think of uniqueness as a negative term, as odd, wrong, too edgy, those kind of things. Native Americans thought that the people on the fringe were a special gift of the gods for the welfare of the tribe. The Berdache, this is part of my master's thesis, the Berdache in Native American culture were probably early GLBT transgender people in the tribes. They were elevated to a position of honor because there was a special gift that they had been given by the gods by having this person in their midst. What a different way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy Buffett calls it fruitcakes. There's a song about that.
Is that right? And do you know any lyrics?
No, I don't.
Okay, we'll look it up. We'll look it up.
Yeah, but it's about that very thing.
One of the things he says in the song is like the fruitcakes. We were when the baker, being God, what he did was he left some of us in the oven just a little too long. And we're the special ones. We're the fruitcakes, and the world needs more fruitcakes.
Absolutely. Was that? Did he write that one before or after Margaritaville? Same thing. All right. So I want to give 5 steps to kind of abandoning these hindrances. Okay, this is more practical, and then actually we'll do a couple questions if we have time. How are we doing? It's 11. Yeah. Good. Perfect. How to abandon these hindrances that will lead you back to the road of happiness, or down the road of happiness. To recognize the hindrance when it is present in you. Jesus, this is it. To recognize it. Name it. For a minute, own it. This is it. 2, remember when it wasn't there. Remember when you were a clear bowl and what that was like versus this, the contrast. Remember when this hindrance was absent in you and what that was about. 3, seek to understand the temporary nature of these hindrances. Mm-hmm. And also with that one, analyze the frequency by which you experience this hindrance. And if you're making progress as you say, boy, I only got angry to the point of wanting to having to walk away once this week, and it's normally daily. Now you're on the road to happiness. You're on the road of happiness. 6 days ahead, 1 back means +5 to me. That's where I got in trouble with the AA people because you always had to start over, right, Natalie? You have to start over at 0 if you mess up. Yeah, and those things. And I was just like, I don't know. I think you're way ahead of where you were. Start at that spot and move forward. The 4th one, plan a strategy for the removal of the hindrance. What will I do with this differently? When it happens, and then 5, plan a strategy before it happens. Plan a strategy before this happens for avoiding the hindrance in the future. Isn't this really quite practical stuff? It's so amazing. It's just like, well, that's kind of obvious. How come it's so difficult to do?
Yeah.
This is not rocket science. This is, I think it's intuitive. This is intuitive material. Recognize the hindrance. Remember what it's like when it's absent. Understand its temporary nature. Plan a strategy for its removal. And when it happens, plan a strategy before it happens.
Wow.
Thoughts, questions, ideas? Yeah.
Back when you were talking about anger or something,
Mm-hmm.
you said if there's a disagreement, let them just go ahead and try it and see the outcome.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Depersonalize it.
You added, unless they're going to hurt themselves. In other words, run out
Someone
on
else.
the street without looking.
Absolutely.
Then you stop. But
Then you join. I don't know if you can. You in parenting. This is this.
let them
this
hurt
plays itself.
themselves is a very,
Mhm.
touching a hot stove, they're going to burn themselves, but they do learn.
Absolutely.
Running out in the street in front of a car, they get killed, but they learn?
Yeah.
Or do you stop them?
Of course you stop them.
Well, where's the hurt? Where do you draw the line?
I don't know. Where do you?
That's it. I was wondering if you had added that part over many lifetimes, it doesn't matter. They can run out in front of a car and they learn, in the next life they're not going to do it.
Yes, that's not exactly how we look at
it. Very, very true. But if you stop them, because it can be something pretty minor that hurts themselves, and you can use that as an excuse. Well, they were going to hurt themselves.
You want to know? I'm going to give you the simple one with, and you can apply it in parenting. When safety is involved, important to try to step in.
So
However, to think that you can change them from the rewards and consequences, I think is flawed.
Perhaps just giving your wisdom and
Mhm.
then stepping back.
Can be that.
You,
You've done what you
let
can do.
them do what they were going to do, even if it's
and then it's out of your hands.
The Al-Anon talks a lot about the idea that you're talking about. Where's this line? And the line is you, not them. If you establish the lines for you, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the person I can, and the wisdom to know that it's me. You do what you do, and then you keep your paws off of the expectation, the result, out of the rewards and consequences that come from that thing. If you deal with an addict in your family, this is life altering when you finally get that idea. Now you set them free to find their answer or not. And you've set yourself free from the suffering that goes along with that.
well. My actual question was: did you add, unless they're going to hurt themselves, or is that in the Buddhist teaching?
I didn't see that.
Everything's to the benefit of.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
everything is wholesome.
I added that. That's from my psychology background. I didn't see that in the literature. But you want to know, that whole idea that you don't personalize things, but leave it to the law of cause and effect. That's Buddhist teaching.
Yeah, the Buddha teaches that you judge when you do judge, with 3 criteria. The first is it ethically or virtuously skillful? Will it get the job done? Will you get a point across if you talk to the child? The second is it wholesome or healthy? If it's not, that's not good. And the third is it of benefit to self and other?
Mhm.
And just those three things, if you can answer those, kind of help you to stay on the spectrum from this extreme to that extreme. You got to come somewhere in here.
Pretty wide parameters.
Yeah.
Those are pretty wide parameters, and I think everybody has to know where those lines are. That's why I asked you, do you know where your line is with that? I think that's for each of us to decide where that is.
Her spectrum is terrific because it's very clear.
Mhm.
If you're down at the bottom end of that spectrum, you're opinionated. Nobody can change your mind. You're a real pain to everybody around you because you're rigid. On the other end, you're so self-doubting, you're paralyzed.
Mhm.
And T.S. Eliot's Jail for Proof Rock. Do I dare to eat a peach? You can get stymied with doubt, or you can be so opinionated. So either extreme, but the awareness, and then you can find where you're satisfied in any circumstance for that circumstance, if that makes sense.
Any other questions, thoughts?
Oh, come on.
No.
She reminds me of my grandmother. She used to say, she's a very large farm woman. She used to say very loudly, everything in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
In moderation.
Mhm.
That's
Meaning,
Yeah.
once in a while, step out,
Yeah.
but try to live a centered
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
Although you said some of these extreme people are pretty helpful in society sometimes.
I mean,
You know, so you gotta
people on the edge have
keep your
changed the
mind
world,
open. Yeah, gotta keep your mind open.
and not always negatively.
Yeah.
So.
But I loved her saying when she said that.
Well, that's pretty much a Buddhist saying. Everything in moderation, equanimity, keep it balanced.
And I'm going to give you one that my grandfather, he said, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all small stuff.
That's what he thought. Is it all small? And your idea is that it's all small stuff.
If you really step back and look at it, pretty much.
Maybe.
Pretty much. That's just the way we say it in my family.
So to go back, if there's no comments, then the lady I started with, my boss P, I found 5 years of equanimity and productivity because I changed my mind and worked my way through that hindrance.
Did you have a lot of chatter about it during those 5 years?
I had to stop. I told the story today because I still remember that day when she took me aside. But I tried during that time not to add to the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my mind about her. Did I think that there were still some things that I completely disagreed with? Yes. Was I in a powered position to say them? I was not. I accepted where I was so that I could. It was a balancing out. I keep the job because that's the bigger good here.
How do you recall her now?
I ran into her about 3 years ago in Minnesota. It's fine. Same. Yeah. I think I don't think about her negatively. I think she was right. I learned a lot of things there. I was disappointed that was the only comment. but you want to know something? She was right. And I learned from her. I had never, except for my mother, said yes, ma'am, to any other ladies.
Very big of you.
It was big. It was bigger than I knew it was. And 5 years of staff meetings where she was telling me what to do. And I did it, except for when it was against my ethics.
Well, having to constantly be the bigger person kept expanding you.
It did.
Yeah.
It
so,
did.
I mean, it did him good, probably. Anybody would.
Recognize the hindrance, release the hindrance, replace the hindrance. Simple as that. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good talk.
Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, Do you want to do
Yeah,
metta or
you should do let's do a loving kindness
do you
meditation,
want to do a loving kindness meditation?
please.
Okay. There are specific meditations for many of the hindrances, and loving kindness meditation is specifically the meditation for anger, aggression, hatred, racism, any of that sort of thing. And I think all of us know that when we recognize that that's coming up, it really is a way of bringing us into alignment with a better, being a better person. I guess is the best way to say it. So everybody here knows how to do this. So take a deep breath. Bring yourself to mind. And as we go through the four sayings, ask yourself, do I really wish this? And I think you find they really cover a lot of territory. So first of all, to yourself, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with equanimity, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. And now we bring to mind someone we love with all our heart. See their face, smile at them, say their name. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And now bring to mind a neutral person. Someone whose name you may not know. If that's the case, address them as friend. But you enjoy seeing them wherever you see them. Bring their face to mind and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Now we widen our circle of compassion, of loving kindness, of goodwill, to a level farther out to someone with whom we are in conflict. Someone who doesn't like us, or someone we don't like, or whatever. Long time ago or just this morning. Doesn't matter who or when, but you're in conflict with them. Bring that person's face to mind. Really see it. And say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm, and peaceful. May you be happy. And now we place our hands over our hearts and we bring to mind all sentient beings everywhere on this planet Earth, out in the universe somewhere, anywhere. This is taking it to the limit, to everything. And we say this one a little differently. We say, may all beings everywhere, on this plane and all other planes, be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And you sit with that for a moment or two, as long as you like or are capable of doing because you're at home, no time limit. You take a few deep breaths, you release your hands, and we open our eyes and smile at our friends. And then for those of you who haven't been here before, I say a little short sentence and you say it out loud. Okay, so to the end, this is the end of a new day at Bali Rica. Go in peace.
Go in peace.
Go making peace.
Go making peace.
Living gently.
Living gently.
Loving mightily.
Loving mightily.
And bowing to the mysteries.
Bowing to the mysteries.
Okay, guys, we'll see you next week.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
That was
I didn't spend too